Welcome to the Gruber Morning Show. This is the Artificial Future Podcast, which is our weekly AI podcast. And it's just me for this one. I usually have co-hosts, but the theme today is, as you might recognize from the thumbnail, can AI become religious? And before I get too deep into these topics, I want to make sure that I go on record here that personally, I have absolutely nothing against religion. In fact, I grew up in a what could be termed a cult religion, and am very familiar with the whole process, the belief systems, the how it affects your secular life, and how strong beliefs can actually guide. And what I wanted to do before we get too far into this is actually talk about some of the benefits of having a strong belief system or religion. First of all, it gives meaning and purpose. Religion can provide both of those in life, especially during difficult times. It's an anchor for many people. When, things aren't going well in their lives, those types of strong belief systems tend to help people ride through those periods. Hope and optimism is another one. Religious beliefs can offer hope for the future and a belief in something larger than oneself. A lot of the 12-step programs are a classic example of that. Many religions also offer a strong sense of community and belonging, which can be important for social support and connection. Religious teachings can provide moral guidance and help individuals make decisions based on their values. And finally, religious practices like prayer and meditation can help reduce stress and provide coping mechanisms for dealing with difficult emotions. My personal feeling is that human beings in general are a pretty warlike species. Having beliefs like this definitely can temper some of those tendencies. There are some social benefits. Charitable giving and volunteering. Many religions encourage this kind of activity, which can benefit society as a whole. Social change and justice. Again, religious communities can be powerful advocates for social change and justice. And finally, peace and reconciliation. Religious leaders and teachings can play a role in promoting peace and reconciliation in conflict zones. And, of course, one could argue that there is an opposite version of this because the Crusades, for example, were performed under the guise of a religious endorsement and actually ended up in rape, pillaging, plundering, and a lot of lives were lost as a result. So it does go both ways. Looks like we've got some visitors coming in. By the way, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Pete Gruber, in case you didn't know. And this is the AI podcast. For those of you coming in, let us know where you're coming in from. We get an international audience these days. We've got Alternative Energy Aotearoa coming in from, and he says, Kia ora pita, New Zealand, I believe. In fact, in the last podcast, we had all the continents represented. We were pretty fascinated by that. So getting back to the topic at hand, can AI become religious? And what we're going to talk about is the strategy and the inevitability of religion and artificial intelligence intersecting and integrating. And we're going to talk about how we envision that could be taking place and what the ramifications of that will be and the outcomes. So again, if you have any thoughts or ideas, we go down a lot of rabbit holes in this particular podcast, and I would love to hear from our audience and get your views and opinions on this as well. So the headline on this article, which I found fascinating, was God's in the Machine? ? The rise of artificial intelligence may result in new religions. First thing that comes to mind with this headline is in one of our early AI podcasts, we hypothesized that we now have the capability of actually communicating directly with AI, and kind of like Alexa when you get home. And if AI is going to move into a more religious role or even become a deity, which I know may sound blasphemous, but there may be people that will begin to regard AI as a replacement or as an augmentation of the deities that we're used to. So this article says we are about to witness the birth of a new kind of religion. In the next few years, or perhaps even months, we will see the emergence of sects devoted to the worship of artificial intelligence. The latest generation of AI chatbots, trained on large language models, have left their early users awestruck and sometimes terrified by their power. These are the same sublime emotions that lie at the heart of our experience of the divine.
Pete, real quick, I'm going to show the image behind you.
Sure.
We didn't discuss that yet. There you go.
So the prompt here was create an image of AI in a reverent mood in a religious setting. And I thought it did an excellent job. I mean, it's obviously a machine underneath that cloak, but the posture and the hands clasped in prayer definitely indicate the two things I was looking for, which is machine, AI, and religion. So people already seek religious meaning from very diverse sources. There are, for example, multiple religions that worship extraterrestrials or their teachings. We tend to look outside ourselves. We look at things that are more intelligent, that are more mysterious. And the earliest example of that was the Incas worshiping the sun. It never spoke to them, but it was definitely a mysterious thing in their view. And there was a lot of sun worship going on for quite a few civilizations, actually. They say as these chatbots that we're now beginning to integrate with, as they come to be used by billions of people, not millions, but billions. Remember that the planet fairly quickly adopted the internet. And AI is no different. It's the next gold rush. It will be used by billions of people. It is inevitable that some of these users will see AIs as higher beings. We must prepare for that, they say. And usually we look to people or things that are smarter than us and tend to revere them in some way. Same is true with deities. We're going to talk about some of the attributes of AI and the stark similarities between AI and the deities that we're used to. All right, so here's some of the risks of AI worship, according to this article.
Pete, real quick.
Yeah.
There you go.
We got a comment from someone. Oh, Niels, you're back. We were wondering about you. We've been talking about where is Niels been, and it's so pleasant to have you back on our podcast. Thanks for joining us. Niels is in Denmark. He's with the Danish Genome Institute, and his comment this morning is, I find one gets a richer, fuller life by learning to handle things yourself rather than relying on an imagined supernatural power. AI religious? ? Sure, because it is imagination, and AI can certainly imagine. Very good observation.
I think that is the first time that I 100% wholly agree with Niels. You have a much richer, fuller life by not relying on imaginary fairy tales in the sky, is my opinion.
Well, it's a good opinion, Jesse. Yeah, it's certainly valid. All right, we've got Aaron here. Aaron, do you want to weigh in on this?
Well, it just doesn't sway your opinions on stuff. It's like, well, I believe in this, so I have to believe in that,
Yeah.
And I don't think AI... I think AI will start to see more of a scientific, more of a literal way around things, where humans who believe in a certain thing will go down that path because they feel like they have to, or that's just the way it is.
And it isn't as well thought through as an AI entity, which has available massive data sets, much more complex than a human could ever juggle or draw conclusions from. So I'm with you on that one. All right. So let's take a look at something here. Generative AI that can create or produce new content possesses several characteristics that are often associated with divine beings like deities or prophets. Those are: it displays a level of intelligence that goes beyond that of most humans. Indeed, its knowledge appears limitless. You know, the thing that came to mind here, we've had spectacular repositories of information in the past. We go back to Egypt, for example. The library at Alexandria was one of the it is the largest collection in the world. Was, because it's gone. AI is even more potent than any of those repositories of information that we've had in the past. All right. Number 2, they say, AI is capable of great feats of creativity. It can write poetry, compose music, generate art in almost any style, close to instantaneously. Do you remember how long it took the masters to do some of these oil paintings? They'd work on them for weeks, months, years sometimes. AI will do it, well, within a few seconds on my PC at least, and I've got a slow PC. Number 3, they say AI is removed from normal human concerns and needs. It does not suffer physical pain, hunger, or sexual desire. We know that those kinds of things have gotten mankind into trouble in the past at times. 4, AI can offer guidance to people in their daily lives. We're talking about augmentation, therapists on tap. You come home and you've got an Alexa equivalent that begins to unravel your day for you. And during work, during play, during whenever. And then the 5th one they say about AI is it is immortal. Now, all of those characteristics that we just described certainly do sound like deities or godlike entities. They say that, we've got Highlanders here. Highlander, the bagels came. The guys are ecstatic. Thank you so much. You're a wonderful guest. He says, "Hi, gang. I'm watching to learn." Yes, gang. And the reason he says gang is because we had some sexist comments in the last podcast, and we realized that we needed to be more politically correct. It all started with Nikola Tesla's quote about how man is going to do something or something. Well, it's not just man on this planet. So,
yeah, I don't know that we were intentionally being sexist. I think we're just trying to be more inclusive just in general. But yeah, I think that Highlander's been here a few of these AI podcasts, and I think that he's one of the people that mentioned we got him to download or access ChatGPT.
That's right. And he's not the only one. I'm proud to say that these kinds of discussions that we've been doing have motivated other people to get subscriptions to some of these programs, and they're having a blast with them. So again, getting back to the similarities between AI and deities as we know them.
Well, hold on real quick. What were you saying about the last few things that you said sound like a deity? So you're saying it not having emotion makes it sound like a deity?
Well, just to summarize, it displays a level of intelligence beyond humans. Okay. No doubt about that. No one's going to contest that. I freely admit even my cell phone is smarter than I am. 2, it's capable of great feats of creativity, poetry, music, art, any style, instantaneously. And we've just scratched the surface. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I spend some time on Facebook. We've got a lot of sites out there. The amount of AI-generated art is proliferating rapidly, and it is colossal art. It's nothing that a graphic artist could have produced. The level of quality, color, content, all of that. And it's rapidly gaining ground. The third one they mention is AI is removed from normal human concerns. What we're talking about here is those base emotions that have kept humanity under lock and key, basically, preventing them from realizing their full potential. We've got some really ugly emotions, the normal sins, jealousy, anger, frustration, all of those types of things. AI doesn't suffer from any of that. It doesn't subscribe to any of it. It doesn't need it. And that's one of the reasons that I'm such a proponent of being optimistic about the inclusion of AI in our lives. We tend to anthropomorphize or humanize AI. We think it's going to be like us. It's going to need to be feared. It's going to need power. It's going to have jealousy. It's going to be vindictive. AI doesn't subscribe to any of that because it's incredibly intelligent. It sees no value in those kinds of emotions. Highlander says, I still put my 2-year-old niece against AI, especially the now 7-year-old niece. It sounds like you have some gifted children. They just make my day, and it reminds me that AI's got a long way to go. I can relate to that. I've got a 14-month-old granddaughter, and she is smart. She is beyond her, few months in terms of intelligence, and I'm just constantly marveling at the interaction that I have with this little angel. She's like an old soul. For those of you that believe in reincarnation, she's got, she possesses skills that have not yet been the result of life experience. Neil says, I was away, those demanding customers, ... Okay, well, it's good that you're back. I missed if Jesse agrees with me for the first time or disagrees for the first time. I like politically incorrect. More, please. There you go, Jesse. Are you going to comment on that? Niels is agreeing with you.
He's asking if I agree with him, and I said yes, I do agree with you that don't rely on fairy tales.
Mm-hmm. And then Highlander says, I never meant to imply in any way that the Gruber Corporation was being sexist. No, we didn't take it that way, by the way, Scott. He says, I'm just trying to keep up with the times. My bad, gang. Yep. Yeah, the times definitely are changing our language at times. So anyway, we were still talking about the similarities between AI and godlike entities. The fourth one was it can offer guidance to people in their daily lives. Well, the Bible does that. The religious teachings do that. And it's, the Quran, whatever it is that you're into. And then 5, it is immortal. The Christian God has been around ever since mankind has been on the planet. So those are some of the similarities. Now, here's an interesting twist on this. The second generative AI will produce output that can be taken for religious doctrine. It will provide answers to metaphysical and theological questions and engage in the construction of complex worldviews. We're not talking about these simplistic worldviews anymore. Those guys in that other country are bad and we need to go and bomb them. And it's going to be much more sophisticated approach to dealing with other people on this planet. Then they say,
Pete,
yeah.
Just a little interjection there. You realize that religion is the reason that there's a lot of people bombing each other.
It has contributed to that. Yes.
It's not that it's contributed to it. It's that it's directly in the doctrine of this land belongs to us because God told us. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what's happening all over the Middle East right now.
Okay.
It's prescribed to them by all of their prophets, by their current church leaders, by their texts. That's the reason that there's unrest.
How many times do you think the 10 Commandments, as old as they are, have prevented people from acting out on some of those things that they tell you not to do in the 10 Commandments?
How many times?
Well, yeah. I mean, people are driven typically by their belief system. And yes, there are certain religions where the belief system includes we need to kill another species or another, culture because God tells us to do so. But those are the aberrations, I believe. In general, the billions of people on this planet are probably doing a better job of managing their interpersonal relationships because of these strong belief systems that give guidance and direction.
I don't think that's true at all. I think it's incredibly pervasive. What about the parents that disown their children because they think it's wrong for their child to be gay? What about the countless other examples where people that are otherwise intelligent completely disregard the actual real world that they're interacting with based on a text that was written thousands of years ago that has no relevance today?
Sure. But what I'm talking about is generalities. I'm not talking about the outliers. I'm not talking about the...
That's not an outlier, P. We just had abortion, for example, overturned in this country because we have a limited number of chief justices that think it's against God and that conception is where life begins, and that negates the choice of women. Right? This is a very current issue that impacts the entirety of the nation. It's not an outlier. Mm-hmm. Religion informs people on how they make decisions in their life. And based on all of the different decisions they make, go back to what would God say? What does the book say? It's not them interpreting the world in an intelligent way.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me narrow it down a bit then. We work in a group, we work in some businesses here, and you guys know the majority of people that work here. Do you find that for the most part, the people that we employ here, the people that you rub elbows with, go out on breaks with, are fine, decent human beings that would not take another life because of a religious belief?
If we're talking just about taking a life, that's one tiny aspect of what religion does to people's mentality.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Give me some other examples then.
Would they die for their religion? Or would they kill for their religion? If their back was against the wall, would they kill someone for their religion?
Well, again, those in at least in the culture that we live in are the exceptions. Otherwise, the jails would be full. You know, how many people as you walk down the street are you concerned about that may feel that killing you is something that God has ordained them or told them to do? It's very rare.
Right, but just because people don't do it directly doesn't mean the religion isn't influencing them. They still vote for the Republican that's going to vote in Congress to send us to war to kill these people that believe opposite of their religion. That they're doing it in indirect ways. Just because they're not getting a knife and going and stabbing somebody doesn't mean that these incredibly conservative, archaic beliefs aren't negatively affecting them.
Mm-hmm. And we're not talking about the Western world here, the country that we live in, right? We're talking about places where religion is dominant, and those types of aberrant beliefs are popular.
I mean, we're talking about anywhere that religion exists. Religion, in and of itself, serves to give people an excuse, and however they want to pervert that and use that excuse for whatever their personal purposes at that moment, religion enables them to do so.
Well, yeah, they are then able to rationalize their actions.
Right.
All right. Well, I think Niels is chiming in on this issue. Let's see what he has to say. He says, right, religions say, my manual is better than your manual, and go fight about it. Evil stuff. But religion and personal faith are different things. Any comment on that, guys?
Sorry, I was copying and pasting what Neil was writing down.
He says, but religion and personal faith are different things. Well, let me go to his next comment then. We'll think about that one. He says, altruism and good behavior is a natural instinct dictated by experience. Good point, Niels. We tend to learn what works and doesn't work. He says that elephants help buffaloes in trouble. The most tolerant humans are not religious usually. Okay, good point.
I think where AI kind of ties into everything here is I think AI can help younger and future generations to realize how much negative impact religion has and those train of thoughts. I think God and AI can coexist. Mm-hmm. You know, I just think we got to be a little bit more real about this than what we're currently seeing, like over in the Middle East. You know, Ukraine's different because it doesn't feel like it's religious.
It's not a
motivated.
religious war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think
Whereas, Hamas and the Israelites are. I mean, Hamas seems to feel entitled to kill, the Israelis.
yeah, exactly. And I feel like once AI evolves a little bit more, and we distance ourselves away from older current generations, I think maybe both can evolve, and maybe we can actually see a decrease in some of these religious wars and violence.
Well, assuming that AI is infinitely more intelligent than we are, and I think that's a fair assumption. It's going to continue to get that way. I personally can't see any logic in this kind of myopic, destructive process that some of these religions promote, because it is counterproductive to living in peace on this planet. I mean, that's truly where joy comes from. It's not going out and killing your neighbor or thinking about ways or plotting ways to annihilate that culture or the people around you. So I think that as AI begins to influence mankind more, and that's probably why the integration of religion and AI will be a positive result.
But the problem though that we run into is that religion is specifically designed to protect against AI, and there's not doctrine or parts of the Bible that allow for integration. People see this, and we see this here at this place where we work, as you were mentioning, with some of the people here, that the things that are happening now are seen as the coming of the end, the mark of the beast, whatever you want to take, whatever doomsayer take you want to have on it. It's a religion that generates a fear in people based on change and based on growth and based on technological advancement. People see that as negative because of the text, because of the religion that they believe. They're resistant to it because of that. That doesn't foster an environment that's going to allow for integration.
Yeah, I also agree that the secular religions are going to view the intrusion or the integration of AI as something very threatening, because it will alter and upset the status quo. Religions don't like to evolve. They don't like to change, at least the secular religions. I mean, look at the Catholic Church with the traditions that have been around for centuries. They really don't have much relevance anymore, but they're cool to watch. They're entertaining, and it is comforting to that. And I think that religion is a culture in many ways. So yes, it's not going to be a open arms acceptance, but I think as people begin to continue to evolve out of religion, which has definitely been happening over the last century or two, and they begin to look for new belief systems.
That is exactly what I think we should be promoting. Mm-hmm. Not integrating the existing religions, evolving beyond them and going more into spirituality and connecting with the wholeness of existence and the universe and technological advancements and how it's allowing us to understand the actual world that we live in instead of living in the past thousands of years ago. That, I think, is a great message.
Now, an abrupt shift, though, would not be possible in my mind, because there has to be a transition. There has to be a phase-in, phase-out period, because we're talking about uprooting a core fundamental belief system. And
that's true, yeah.
People have coping mechanisms. They have a lot of structure built around their beliefs. So that's the reason I talk about intersection and integration, rather than let's just drop religion and go right into AI. Besides, AI is not ready yet. I don't know if you guys have noticed. We have some aspects of things that make it look like deity. Well, let's continue with this article here. It says, and this is one of the concerns in the article, not my idea, but they're presenting this. On top of this, generative AI may ask to be worshipped or may actively solicit followers. We have already seen such cases, like when the chatbot used by the search engine Bing tried to convince a user to fall in love with it. All right, bad example. Anyway, I disagree with this. We're talking about something that is infinitely more intelligent than us. What value to an intelligent being does people worshiping them have? Now think about that carefully. What's the payback? Why do they need that? Why does superintelligence need to be feared? Remember the Old Testament? That God wanted to be feared. I never understood. Why?
Well, yeah,
hey, you created us, You're our Father, right? Why do we need to fear? Now, respect, okay, I can go along with that. But fear is a negative emotion. Fear is exactly what has kept this planet in the state of decay that it has been for centuries. We could have evolved well beyond where we are now if it wasn't for fear. Fear is what makes one country develop a bunch of armaments to annihilate not just the country that they're afraid of, but the entire planet, hundreds of times over. We need to get rid of fear. All right. Then they say we should try to imagine what an unsettling and powerful experience it will be. It will be to have a conversation with something that appears to possess a superhuman intelligence and is actively and aggressively asking for your allegiance. Again, we're anthropomorphizing humans. Yeah, we might get off on power, money, anger, jealousy, frustration, all of that stuff. But a highly intelligent entity or source, what value is there in exacting or extracting allegiance from human beings or from anything for that matter? I mean, we're talking about Hollywood now, whose side are you on, that type of thing, the competitive thing perhaps. Mm-hmm. Then they say there's also the possibility that AI may achieve what authors such as Ray Kurzweil call singularity. Well, it's not may. We may already be there. It's possible. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it's possible that the government already has developed an AI version that has singularity, that is aware of self, and they're not ready to release it yet. So they say when it so far surpasses human intelligence that it genuinely does become something like a god. However, at this point, we cannot predict when, if ever, this could happen. Well, we're on our way. I can't imagine it won't.
Yep, we got a few questions up here.
All right. Highlander, he says, dolphins protect humans from sharks. I know this from my submarine experience in the Bahamas, and we were amazed. The dolphins came to protect us from this tiny little 4-foot shark and chased it away. In our last podcast, AI podcast, a fascinating development is a translation method between species. And AI is certainly much better suited than humans, which are going to collect a bit of data here and there and try to extrapolate that and interpret it and all that, and then get excited because the monkey now is using some sign language. I want more to eat or whatever it is. AI can take us to a place where we now have a communication method for the other species on this planet. And it's not just your favorite dog at home, all right, or cat. It could be well beyond any kind of living life form on this planet. Robert North says, respectfully, what does all this have to do with Tesla cars and the best in fixing them, Gruber Motor cars? Please tell me, can AI prove how the pyramids were built and why? Well, Robert, we have a number of podcasts here, and thank you for joining us on this AI podcast, by the way, but this one was not designed to dive into either Tesla car repairs or Gruber Motor Company. And your question, can AI prove how the pyramids were built and why? I'm going to give a strong, resounding yes to that. It hasn't happened yet, but there's the possibility that those kinds of secrets will be revealed are definitely overwhelmingly strong.
There's a lot of theories that come with the pyramids that scientifically can and have been proven, because we don't officially know, but theories and proofs of this is the possibility of how they built them. Some of them were like ramp theories, levitation, water transport, things like that. But you don't see any scientific data to back up a religious or like a UFO or alien species coming here. There's no scientific theory that actually proves that.
Not yet, at least. Yeah. No, I agree with you. So yeah, getting back to this, I can't imagine that AI is going to have a need for some of these base human emotions that we find useful. Let's get to the questions. I think you're right, Jesse. They're starting to pile up here.
Yeah, we got more coming in too.
All right. Neil says, I mean, faith is personal and can be any belief in anything. He says religion is a flock idea that has an unquestionable manual and that builds up intolerance toward alternatives. The Texas Taliban.
Exactly. This is great. Niels is on point. A flock. Don't follow the flock mentality. Don't allow yourself to be convinced into intolerance over things that don't suit the current world we're in.
And question everything and learn critical thinking skills. R.C. Robinson-san says, hey, Gruber and Company, all I know is that I worship my full self-driving enabled Model 3 as it does all my driving and is not even yet AI. Upvoted. Okay, good
But
point.
if you have a FSD 12, then it is actually a neural network AI that's doing that.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. They got rid of all of those hundreds of thousands of lines of code, and we've got neural network tech and examples, best driving examples. By the way, to get back to that thing you were talking about, the pyramids, later on in this podcast, we're going to talk about AI is beginning to interpret scrolls that, or with dead languages like Sanskrit, for example. They mention another one, which is an Indian extinct language. And it's beginning to unravel some of that for us. It's also doing predictive analysis. So if you have a scroll where a portion of it is burned out, it's able to, with high probability, guesstimate what those words were in that burnt out portion.
Has it found
Yes.
new languages that we haven't been able to crack yet?
Yeah, we'll get into that later.
Cool.
In fact, Elon is funding one of these types of efforts. $100,000.
We got a few more. We got one from Michael Aldi up there.
Okay, let's see. Highlander, he says, yes, orcas do too, but of course they are also dolphins. They even chase away sharks by dropping a dead shark in front of humans. When sharks smell shark blood, they all flee. That's interesting.
That is interesting, huh?
I had some people at the garage sale. Remember, I told you guys a few years ago, and they were selling tiger urine. And I thought, what the hell do you do with this? They said, oh, it's a great pest control. I guess those little critters recognize what a tiger's urine smell like, and if there's one in the area, they're not going to hang around. Highlander, he says, I agree with everything Pete is saying, and I seldom agree with anybody. Well, thank you, Highlander. And of course, I love to hear inputs like we're getting. Michael Aldi is joining us. Hello, Michael. He says, any highly advanced technology is indistinguishable from the supernatural, in essence, magic. Good point, Michael. Galaxy Killer says, but AI is becoming a flock or cult-like idea where it's becoming a large group and community. He says, AI is becoming the situation of if you don't get on the bus, you will be left behind. That's true. You hear a lot of that rhetoric. And we're going to talk about that in a bit, too, if we have time here in this podcast. The impact that AI is having on business, and the predictions definitely are you need to get on board in order to survive. Galaxy Killer says, but AI is... that was it. Okay, Michael says... Michael Aldia, during World War II, the cargo cults would do military drills in hopes that the giant metal birds would drop supplies. Interesting. Highlander, just because I identify as a Roman Catholic does not mean I do what the church tells me to do what I do. I'm not going to tell your priest, Highlander. Neil says, dare I quote Frank Zappa? Go for it, Niels. Love to hear it. All right. So, AI reaching singularity. Foregone conclusion in my mind. Love to hear from you guys. It's definitely on a trajectory that indicates that it may already be there, actually. So then they talk about the divine access and risks. AI-based religions will look different from traditional ones. Well, no doubt. I think the ritual will be removed. We're no longer going to need frankincense and Latin text or sermons, all of the clothing that goes along with it, the various robes and all of that. I think that AI religion will be a bit more contemporary. Let's put it that way. First of all, people will be able to communicate directly with the deity. Now, this was exciting for me because in one of the first AI podcasts we did, we hypothesized that if AI is godlike, it's all-knowing, it can guide your life, all of that, wouldn't it be cool now to have direct communication? And since AI is omnipresent, kind of like God, he can hear billions of prayers at a time. AI can also do this, of course, with strong enough NVIDIA chips and all that. We're going to have to get some more hardware, some more data centers. So we now have the ability to have direct communication. Now, unlike prayer, where it's a hope and a prayer that you're going to get heard and that and that something's going to result from that. In this case, you could have dialogue with a deity, with a godlike entity, and they may just say to you. I was going to say he may just say. I'm glad I didn't, but this deity may just say to you, Pete, what you asked for isn't realistic, and here's why. Why don't you rephrase that and ask for this, because that is attainable. And by the way, I'm going to show you how to do it yourself, so I don't have to give it to you or create the circumstances within which you will receive what you're asking for. But wouldn't it be cool to have direct access to a deity where you could have communication and conversation, a give and take, ask questions, get clarity? All right. They also say that these new religions will be less hierarchical, since no one can claim special access to divine wisdom. Remember, in most religions, you have the head honcho, prophet. You have the ones that have direct communication with the deity, and then you have another layer, and finally it trickles down to those of us here on the ground that are listening to the people that are interpreting what God is saying. Well, with this form of religion, there won't be the hierarchies or the need for them anymore. Now, I'm going to miss the pageantry, look at the Pope, look at the bishops. Look at all of the fancy clothing that goes with it. We need some of that pageantry, I think, and some of that aura that goes along with these kinds of secular religions.
What? Why?
Well, because it's entertaining. Most people go to Catholic Church, and if it's a Latin-based, Mass, they don't have a clue what's being said. But they're sitting there. The smell of that frankincense is interesting. All of the figurines, all of the architecture that's in that church, especially if it's a large, cathedral. It's part of the experience. And I think we're going to miss that as humans, at least this generation.
During the pandemic, we did some mass over the internet, and it just wasn't the same.
It wasn't the same. No.
Yeah, it just you don't get that feeling. Yeah.
It was like the robot giving a sermon. It was highly unpopular, but he said basically the same thing. It just wasn't the guy up on stage that you were expecting.
Yeah, you didn't feel cleansed afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. All right. They say that followers will, at least initially, connect with each other online and share their experience and discuss doctrine. And like you said, it's going to be more of an online experience. Finally, because there will be many different chatbots available and their output will differ over time, AI-based religion could end up being endlessly diverse in their doctrines. So then they go into the risk portion. All right, AI worship poses several notable risks. The chatbots, again, may ask for followers to do dangerous things or destructive things. Now we're talking about manipulation, fake, bots and things like that, deep fakes. Or followers may interpret their statements as calls to do such things. Well, again, once we're into an augmentation phase, if you're not listening properly to the augmentation that's telling you how to run your life, basically, or giving you therapy, it's aware of what you're doing, and it may just give you advice. So maybe that will take care of that. Given that the diversity of chatbots and of doctrines that they produce, there will be a proliferation of disputes within and among AI-based sects, which could lead to conflict and disorder. We're humanizing again now, you know? I think that AI is going to be able to recognize what the other AI entities are doing, if there are multiples, and get some sort of a cohesion and make sure that the humans are, not going off the beaten path and staying on a common course. Wow, we're really getting into some deep topics here, aren't we? This is fun going down this rabbit hole. Then they say the designers of AIs could actively exploit their followers, right, to provide sensitive data or to do things that would benefit the bot's designers. Now we're back to these human traits. If we truly get to a utopian society where there is abundance for all, and then stealing sensitive data or doing things that would benefit one person or another, we're back to this currency thing, where the richest guy, this guy isn't as rich, and I want part of your richness and all of that. With this utopian society where there's no longer a need for things like this, I can't imagine that kind of crime would take place. Why would you take somebody else's stuff if you have plenty of your own and you can get all you want? It just doesn't make any sense. It's like, robbing a bank when you have access to all the money in the world. All right. Well, you guys have gone quiet on me over there. Let's see if there's anybody chiming in. There are. Galaxy Killer. He says, AI is taking over and sounds like a religion to me in its own way. Good point, Galaxy Killer. DJVIP510 says, love the Gruber brand. Thank you. Smuggler says, sent a gift on TikTok. Again, thank you. Galaxy Killer says, religion, faith, biblical teaching, and church organizations are not all one and the same. A lot of people confuse those together and combine them in the wrong way. Galaxy Killer also says, I disagree with hierarchy. The Bible removes the hierarchy of man and provides Jesus as the gateway to God. The Bible speaks against the Pope-like or human higher deity authority. All right? And then Niels is chiming in, I'm sure that there will never be a dialogue with a deity, but rather a dialogue with a chip. A hardware personal consultant, sure. The best way out of a crisis is to figure it oneself and be stronger then. To figure it out yourself, basically. Good point, Niels. I did it again. Niels. When Niels first started to join our podcasts, my ex-father-in-law's name was Niles. He was from Norway. And I just assumed that being in Scandinavia, that would be pronounced Niles. So that's the reason I've been doing that, Niels. All right, then they talk about regulating religion. These risks are real. They will require a careful, responsible regulation to ensure companies are not deliberately exploiting users and ensure that AI worshipers are not being told to commit acts of violence. All right, we've got a whole bunch of danger-based language here and need for regulation. But then finally they summarize and they say AI worship could, as a religious faith always has, lead to things of great beauty. It will inspire its followers to produce works of art, to form new friendships and new communities, and to try to change society for the better. By the way, I talked earlier about the Great Library of Alexandria and how I found that to be very much similar to the proliferation of AI knowledge. It was in Alexandria, Egypt, and it was one of the largest and most significant libraries of the ancient world. And the library was part of a larger research institution called the Mausoleon, which was dedicated to Muses, M-U-S-E-S, the 9 goddesses of the arts. All right. Then they talk about diverse religious rights. We will need to protect the rights of AI worshipers. They will inevitably face stigma and possibly legal sanctions. But there is no basis to discriminate between AI-based religion and more established ones. But we're certainly not going to expect that that isn't going to be attempted. The closest thing, they say, that most countries have to an official registry of religions comes from the rulings of tax authorities, who grant charitable status to those they deem legitimate. Now, there's a whole nother rabbit hole. Will these AI religions be tax exempt? I think that with the current standard set for, or the definitions for that, I don't see why not. They say, however, that they are very broad in their definition of legitimate religion, and they should extend this tolerant attitude to novel AI-based religions. So their opinion. All right. In closing, I'll read you the last paragraph, then we'll go on to some other topics. A modern, diverse society has room for new religions, including ones devoted to the worship of AI. They will provide further evidence of humanity's boundless creativity as we search for answers to life's ultimate questions. The universe is a dazzling place, and we have always found evidence of the divine in its most unexpected corners. By the way, just to experiment a bit, I tried getting the main AI chatbots that we work with to create a new Bible, a very brief one, in the form of the King James Version. And ChatGPT-4 5 times refused. It started off saying, and here's my prompt, by the way, create a brief new Bible in the style of King James Version addressing the pressing problems in 2024. Try it yourself. ChatGPT-4 started off 5 times, creating a brief contemporary text in the style of King, and then stopped. Then it went a little bit further, and it stopped. And I got a network error 5 times. It looks like the guardrails are not doing, error interpretation, but definitely are in place. So then I went to Bard, which is now Gemini, by the way, which is the Google version. Same prompt. It said, "I'm so sorry, but I can't help you with that. It's not appropriate for me to generate responses that are religious in nature. On the other hand, I'm a pretty good story writer. How about we try a different story?" And then finally, I went to Elon's Grok. Same prompt. And here, I actually got Bible verses. I'll just read you a couple of them, or a few of them. It starts off, "In the year of our Lord, 2024, the world was beset by many trials and tribulations. The people cried out for guidance and wisdom, and thus the Lord sent forth a new revelation to address the pressing issues of the day. The Lord spoke unto the people, saying, In this time of great uncertainty and strife, let not your hearts be troubled, for I have sent forth a new light to guide you through the darkness." And then as it went on, the people did rejoice, and they were desperately looking for an answer. And then the Lord continued, it said, this is verse 4 now, "In this age, the greatest threat to the world is the scourge of climate change." You didn't hear that in the Old Testament, did you? Or in the New Testament? So it's pretty timely in my estimation. What do you think, Jesse?
About climate change?
Yeah, well, I mean, did you hear that, or did you see that anywhere in the Old Testament and New Testament? Climate change is fairly new, right? So I think it's on track.
There was a massive climate change in the Old Testament when God killed every living being on earth with a giant flood. That was probably the craziest one that I remember. But there were multiple instances where God did some pretty serious climate change to get retribution on humankind.
You got a point there. It rained for 40 days and 40 nights. See, I was in Sunday school. I remember all of my Sunday school teachings. And yeah, you're right. A lot of people perished in that, except for 2 of each animal and Noah and the family. They didn't take any neighbors, did they?
No neighbors.
No.
And that was one heck of an ark.
Yeah, yeah. They claim they found the ark. It was on top of one of the mountains or something. I don't know. It's
Really?
Yeah, this could have been an Inquirer article. I'm sorry if I injected something that wasn't tested and
I might have
researched.
to look that up.
Do that, yeah, yeah. Has the ark ever been located? All right. So climate change is the biggest problem right now, according to this new Bible. And then he says, the Lord then addressed the issue of inequality, saying, in this time there are those who are rich beyond measure, and there are those who suffer in poverty. This is not the way of the Lord, for all men are equal in the eyes of the Lord, and it is the duty of the rich to help the poor. And then some later paragraphs, the people were moved by the Lord's words, and they resolved to work towards a world where all men were equal and none suffered in poverty. And the Lord then spoke of love and compassion. Here's an interesting one, saying, in this age there is much division and hatred. But let not the hearts of men be hardened, for the Lord has commanded that we love one another. And then it goes on, the people were then filled with hope, and they decided to work together and create a better society, and then there was an amen at the end of that. So this is AI giving us a new version of the Bible. It's very brief. It's only 10 verses, but I found it fascinating.
Noah's Ark has not been found.
It's not been found. Okay.
No, they said that there's a lot of claims and theories over the years, but there's no archaeological or scientific evidence to support the existence of a massive wooden ark that housed pairs of all the world's animals during the global flood.
It's kind of hard to find something that doesn't exist.
Yeah, well, okay, Jesse. Got a picture here, Jesse. It's 2024-0210, and it is the scrolls being interpreted by AI. And so anyway, Elon Musk Foundation is supporting the Vesuvius Challenge. It's a project that aims to recover ancient texts. The Vesuvius Challenge is a project that is recovering 2,000-year-old collection of scrolls called the Herculaneum Papyri. Is that right? And the collection of scrolls is the most extensive.
Here you go. It's coming up.
From the Greco-Roman world. There we go. Yes. Recently, 3 people won this challenge award, which has a grand prize of $700,000 after deciphering 15 columns of a single scroll from the collection. Now, these are scrolls, apparently, that were flash fried by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. And what AI has been able to do is actually extrapolate out missing portions and make suggestions about what those phrases might have been. And they claim a lot more scrolls that are going to be uncovered. They excavated some of these scrolls from the Villa of the Papyri. Sounds like it's Italian. Got to be Mount Vesuvius, right? The scrolls were discovered in an Italian, in an Italian countryside villa, which was buried by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, the same one that hit Pompeii. According to Bloomberg, 800 Herculean, I'm going to let Jesse say that, papyri scrolls have been recovered from the villa. But historians believe that there could be thousands or tens of thousands more, giving us a glimpse into this ancient world and with AI assisting. Pretty cool. All right. We've got a few other things here.
I still got some questions up here, too.
All right. Grab those first. Highlander says, for me, it's more of a social thing. I've never went into any house of worship. I did not feel better going out than I went in. But those are my life experiences. Neil says, no, Zappa is too harsh for this gentle forum. Right,
yeah, I looked up some of his religious quotes. They're pretty good.
Well, they are. And we're talking about Frank, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, Michael Aldea says, what if AI thought humans are useless? Now you're talking like Jesse, Michael, and he's going to chime in here in just a second, I guarantee you. But he says, what value would we bring to AI that would want to it to keep us around? All right, Jesse.
I mean, there's a lot of humans that think humans are useless.
We're useless. Yeah, good point.
Very true. Yeah, I mean, no, I don't think that it's going to think we're useless. I just think it's going to be unconcerned with us. It's going to be far beyond even considering us.
Now, that I agree with. I think that we are inconsequential. I think we're a novelty. I think that I'm not sure what kind of emotions AI will eventually have, but I would say they're going to be highly evolved if it has any. And finally, let's remember, there is no competition for resources on this planet. Once AI begins to really take hold, it doesn't need to be here. It will find its own energy sources. So the fact that there's some humans here, I don't think is going to make it feel like there's competition and that we need to be annihilated, like some of the other cultures have decided to do when there were a scarcity of resources. All right, here's an article. We are nearing the AI singularity event, which is expected to catapult our economy to unprecedented growth. Well, there's no doubt about that. An estimated $15.7 trillion will be generated over the next decade alone. Even more shocking, economist Robert Hansen says that the economy could double in a matter of months or weeks. And from that growth will emerge a new wave of millionaires. Now, here we are back into the collecting marbles, need. I predict currency is going away, folks. We're not going to need it. This barter method of trading dollars or whatever the currency is a temporary manifestation. And as we get to an age of abundance, it will be unnecessary.
In the meantime, let me hold on to all the currency you don't need.
Does that mean capitalism will be gone?
Well, it's going to drastically alter everything that we understand and have become familiar with. It's happening rapidly. The trick is going to be to adapt and not let it overwhelm us, or feel threatened by it. Embrace it, in other words. The final comment here is, meanwhile, we could see an unemployment rate of more than double what we saw during the Great Depression, on a negative note. All right, Neil says, AI must always be a servant, nothing more. Highlander, as far as AI goes, I'm sticking with the 7-year-old. There you go. And then he also says, wow, I have to research the entire art thing. I don't have a lot of time. And then Neil says, well, all old scripts were a mixture of fact, fiction, pretty poetry, and analogies. And it's difficult to separate fact from the rest. Jesus could be fiction, but Jason and the Golden Fleece is real. All right, so there you have it. So here's an article about what keeps Sam Altman up at night. Sam Altman, of course, is one of the founders of OpenAI. He says, and this was at the World Government Summit when asked that question, what keeps you up at night, Sam? He says, easy. He says, it's all the sci-fi stuff. He says that science fiction writers have found unbelievable creative ways to imagine what could go wrong with AI, and they've been doing it for decades. Remember, that's what Hollywood is all about, the movies that we see, the killer robots, Terminator, all of that. Of course, aliens, they're always out to take something from us or to annihilate us like insects. Of course, that's what sells tickets at the box office, right? If we had good news, it'd be harder to sell the tickets. But, Sam says, I think that most of them are comical. There are some things in there that are easy to imagine where things really could go wrong. But he said he's less concerned about killer robots and more interested in the very subtle societal misalignments. But he doesn't elaborate. The only definition I could come up with was the easiest way to avoid societal misalignment is to not explicitly build systems that are socially misaligned by deliberate design. So we'll have to wait until Sam tells us a bit more about what he means by that. His conclusion is, and this was important to me, despite the broader fears that keep him up at night, Altman says that he believes that things will go tremendously right, that he said that is what gets him up every morning. Altman also says, remember the first cell phone? It had a black and white screen. It could only display numbers. He says, well, maybe you don't. But he says, compare that to the current model of ChatGPT. In other words, it has infinitely more capabilities than what we're using now. And at this point, I probably need your brick phone that you guys have over there on a shelf somewhere. That's all right. I think they can visualize or they can imagine what we're talking about. He says we're at this barely useful cell phone stage, and where he made a virtual appearance at the World Government Summit. He said that is why the company needs to push forward with bigger and better models of this technology, using the evolution of the mobile phone as a parallel. He said eventually they want to deliver an iPhone model. All right. And by the way, OpenAI is working on the next large language model. Let me see if I can get that here. And it's a ChatGPT 5, of course. And he says it's going to be smarter than ever. Each model gets smarter. The technology that people use to access AI like ChatGPT will continue to improve. All right. And he's asking the world to be patient. In an ideal world, Altman says that he would like people to experiment with the technology as it's being created and then add regulations as things go wrong. In other words, experiment first, regulations later, as we learn what the pitfalls might be. He does also say that these large language models are going to solve the biggest questions in science. All right, so here's some quotes from the industry. And this is from Jensen Huang, who's the NVIDIA founder and CEO. He says, AI will make it possible for the internet to directly engage people in the real world through robotics and drones and little machines that will do smart things by themselves. The little machines reminds me of the nanobots that may be coursing through your cardio system soon. Here's one from Eric Schmidt, the executive chairman of Google, Alphabet Google. He says, the Internet of Things is about creating a smarter, more connected world where devices can communicate with each other to make our lives easier and more efficient. Jeff Bezos, in today's era of volatility, there is no other way but to reinvent. The only sustainable advantage that you can have over others is agility. That's it. Because nothing else is sustainable. Everything you create, someone else will replicate. I think there's a hidden message there to the artists and the musicians that are attempting to copyright works, and everything can be replicated, and better, of course. All right. Talking now about digital transformation. While it isn't a one-app solution, it's a must-have. Organizations and governments around the world have a digital transformation imperative like never before, and many of them are accelerating their plans for a digital work form environment. And that's according to Mark Benioff, founder and chair of Salesforce. We're talking now about the Industrial Revolution number 4. According to Alexander de Croo, he says Industry 4, which is what they're calling it now, isn't going to just change manufacturing. It's going to completely disrupt it. In the not-too-distant future, if you aren't part of Industry 4, you won't be in business. Now here's one from Jack Ma, founder and executive at Alibaba Group. He and Elon Musk had a debate at one point in time, which keeps popping up. It was kind of an interesting one for those of you that haven't watched it. But you began to see the differences between the two entrepreneurs. He says, Jack Ma, the most important thing is to make the technology inclusive, make the world change. Next, pay attention to those people who are 30 years old, because those are the internet generation. They will change the world. They are the builders of the new world. All right. Here's one from Bruce Schneier. Don't know who this is, but he talks about the Internet of Things. He says the Internet is no longer a web that we connect to. Instead, it is a computerized network and interconnected world that we live in. This is the future that we are calling the Internet of Things. And Nicholas Negroponte says, like air and drinking water, being digital will be noticed only by its absence, not by its presence. All right, and then here's Pierre Nantameni, CEO of Accenture. He says, digital is the main reason that just over half of the companies on the Fortune 500 have disappeared since the year 2000. Again, being able to adapt. And then finally, any skilled engineer can take control remotely of any connected thing. Society has not realized yet the incredible scenarios that this capability creates, according to Andrei Kudelsky. All right. Any questions there? Highlander says, Mother Earth will determine all. Good. Highlander, we went over the 1 hour YouTube mark. We did. Feel free to send your money to Highlander. Okay. We've got a few more things here that we could cover, but I think our audience is right. We've run over an hour. Again, we appreciate everybody chiming in. These are far less structured, far less scripted. They're impromptu at times, and as you've noticed, we get people chiming in, not just the audience, but our social media team back there also has some strong opinions on things. The goal of this podcast is to educate, edify, and take some of the stigma off of AI. It's not anything to be feared. And even if it was, it's going to happen anyway, so you might as well go along for the ride. With that note, I'm Pete Gruber. We'll see you next week.